Today I want to review the urinary system and male and female reproductive system for your lab exam. And the first chapter which I want to review is the urinary system for you. In this picture, you can see the urinary system. You have number 1 as the right kidney, and here you can see the left kidney. The adrenal glands are located on top of the kidney. And number 2 can show you the ureter. The ureter's right and left side come down and join with the urinary bladder. And after that, you can see number 4 at the urethra. In this picture, you can see the anatomy of the kidney. And in this picture, you can see the capsule of the kidney from outside. You have the cortex, and you can see the medulla of the kidney. You have minor calyx, major calyx, renal, pelvis, and the ureter as the duct system in the kidney. You have the renal artery, which bring the blood into the kidney, and the renal vein, which take the blood out of the kidney. In this picture, you have the frontal section or coronal section of the kidney, and in this picture, you have number 1. This region is the medulla of the kidney. Number 2 is the cortex. Number 3 is called renal column or column of Bertin. Number 4 is the capsule of the kidney, and number 5 is the renal pyramids. Number 6 is the papillary duct, which has the opening as the renal papilla to the minor calyx. Then we have major calyx, number 8, here. And number 12 is the renal pelvis. Number 11 here is the hilum, and in the hilum you can see the renal artery which come to the kidney and the renal vein which leave the kidney. In this picture you can see the ureter's urinary bladder and urethra. In this picture, number 2, both of them are the ureters. You can see the bladder here, and number 3 is the detrusor muscle in the wall of the bladder. Number 4 are the openings of the ureter in the bladder. Number 5 is this trigone, the triangle shaped structure without any rugae. Then you have number 6. Number 6 is the opening here. This opening is called internal urethral opening. And number 9 is the external urethral opening. We have 2 sphincter here. One of them is number 1, which is internal urethral sphincter, and the other one is number 8, and this is external urethral sphincter. External urethral sphincter is a skeletal muscle, and internal urethral sphincter is a smooth muscle. Then you have number 7, which is the urethra. In the next picture, you can see the male pelvis, the sagittal section of male pelvis. In this picture, you have number 1 as the rectum, and number 2 is the anus. You have number 3 here. This is the ureter. Number 4 is the cavity of bladder with many rugae. Number 5 is the opening of ureter in the bladder. Number 6 is internal urethral orifice. Number 7 is called prostatic urethra. Number 8 is the membranous urethra. And number 9 is the penile or spongy urethra. And number 10 is the external urethral orifice. And this is female. In the female, you can see number 12, this is the rectum. Number 13 is the anus. Number 14 is the uterus, and here you can see the ovary and oviduct. You have number 15, this is the cavity of the bladder. Pay attention to the location of the bladder and uterus. Then you have number 16. Number 16 is internal urethral orifice. Number 17 is the, and number 19 is external urethral orifice. And number 18 here is urogenital diaphragm or pelvis diaphragm. In this diaphragm, we have external urethral sphincter. In this picture, you can see the structure of the nephron. One part of the nephron with the blue arrow is located in the cortex, and some parts of the nephron with the red arrow is located in the medulla. In this picture, you can see number 1 is the Bowman's capsule. Number 2 is the proximal convoluted tubule. Then you have number 4, loop of Penile. Number 3 shows you the ascending part of loop of Penile. Number 5 is the distal convoluted tubule. And number 6 is the collecting duct. Collecting ducts join together and make number 7, which is the papillary duct. In this picture, you can see number 10. Number 10 is aggregation of 8 and 9. 8 is the glomerulus, and 9 here is the Bowman's capsule. Together, we call them renal corpuscle. In this picture, you can see a cortex of the kidney and a part of medulla. I want to start from this blood vessel. Here, you have arcuate artery, then you have interlobular artery. After that, you have number 13, which is afferent arteriole, glomerulus, and number 12 is the efferent arteriole. The efferent arteriole wrap around the nephron. In the cortex, this wrapping is called peritubular capillary with number 11. And in medulla, we call it vasa recta. Vasa recta and peritubular capillary combine together and make interlobular vein and then arcuate vein. Then you can see the next picture. In this picture, we have afferent arteriole, glomerulus, and efferent. And this wrapping in the medulla, which is number 3, is called vasa recta. 4 is the wrapping in the cortex, and we call it peritubular capillary. Now, in this picture, you can see number 5. Let me start with number 9. Number 9 is the renal artery. Number 8 is the segmental artery. Number 7 is the interlobar artery. Number 6 is the arcuate artery. And number 5 is interlobular artery. Then you can see number 13, which is interlobular vein. Then you have 12, arcuate vein. Then you can see 11, interlobar vein, and then 10, which is renal vein. In this picture, you can see the histology of the cortex of the kidney. We call it cortex because in the cortex you can see renal corpuscles, and we don't have renal corpuscle in the medulla. And number one is the ducts. We should go to higher magnification to see them. And also number three. Now, in the higher magnification, you can see the number 4 here. Number 4 completely is the glomerulus. Number 6 is the Bowman's capsule cavity. And number 5 is the parietal layer of the Bowman's capsule. And pay attention, we have 2 ducts here. One of them has simple cuboidal epithelium with deeper color. One of them has simple cuboidal epithelium with lighter color. The deeper color shows you proximal convoluted tubule, and the lighter one shows you distal convoluted tubule. Then the last slide is the slide of ureter. I told you that the ureter is has the star-shaped lumen, and you can see this star-shaped lumen here. Number 1 is the lamina propria, and number 2 is the transitional epithelium. Together, 1 and 2 can make number 4, which is tunica mucosa. Number 5 is tunica muscularis externa, and number 6 is the tunica adventitia. And number 3 is the lumen of ureter. This is the urinary system. Do you have any question here? The next part is the male reproductive system. This is the male reproductive system. Some of the pictures have extra information which are for your lecture, not for your lab. In this picture, number 1 is the cremaster muscle. Pay attention, this whole structure with the cremaster muscle can make a spermatogenesis. And here you can see tunica vaginalis. Number 2 is the muscle which we have in the scrotum, and this muscle is called dartus muscle. Do you remember the trossard muscle in the urinary bladder? In the scrotum, the muscle is called dartus. And number 3 is the scrotum. In this picture, you can see the sagittal section of the testis. In this sagittal section, you can see number 5. Number 5 is the tunica albuginea, which cover the testis. From the tunica albuginea, we have number 7. They are septa, and the septa can make number 6, which is testis lobule. In each testis lobule, you have number 2, seminiferous tubules. Seminiferous tubules are coiled, and at the end they make number 3, which is a straight tubule, and all straight tubules join together and make number 4, which is the rete testis. And from the rete testis, you can see number 1, the efferent duct which come out of the kidney. They join together and make epididymis. In this picture, you can see the testis. The epididymis has head, body, and tail, and after that, the vas deferens start. In this picture, you can see number 2. Number 2 is the epididymis. Number 1 is the vas deferens. Number 4 are testicular artery, vein, and nerve. And number 3 is the spermatic cord. In this picture, you can see the sagittal section of male pelvis. In this sagittal section, you can see number 6, this is the testis. Number 7 is the scrotum. Then you can see number 5, this is the epididymis. And number 8, the vas deferens. The vas deferens come to the body, pass both sides of bladder and go to the back of bladder. At the end, it makes ampulla, and the ampulla of vas deferens and the duct of seminal vesicle join together and make ejaculatory duct. And ejaculatory duct combine with the prostatic urethra. Number 9 is the prostatic urethra. And then you can see number 3, which is the prostate gland. Then you can see the membranous part of urethra. And after that, you have number 10, which is the penile urethra. Number 11 is the penis. And number 12 is the external urethral orifice. In this picture, you can see the bladder. This is the back of the bladder. You have 2 ureters in the back of the bladder. Number 5 is the vas deferens. The end of vas deferens is number 6, which we call it ampulla. Number 1 are, both of them are seminal vesicle. 2 is the prostate gland. 3 is the prostatic urethra, 4 is the membranous urethra, and 9 is the penile urethra. Number 7 is the ejaculatory duct. Number 8, both of them are bulbourethral gland or Cooper's gland. And I told you number 9 is the penile urethra. In this picture, you can see the glands: accessory sex gland, seminal vesicle number 1, number 2 is the prostate, and number 3 is the Cooper's gland or bulbourethral gland. Let me show you the sphincters in this picture. In this picture, you have internal urethral opening by black arrow here, and this black arrow shows you external urethral opening. So internal urethral and external urethral opening. Then by red color, you can see this sphincter. We call it internal urethral sphincter. And by blue color, you can see external urethral sphincter. So pay attention to their location. In the next picture, you can see number 1, the prostate, number 2, the prostatic urethra, number 3, membranous urethra, number 4, corpus spongiosus, which contain the penile urethra, which is number 6. Then you can see number 5, corpus cavernosus. Number 7 is the glands. Number 9 is the prepuce. And number 10 is the external urethral opening. And number 8 here is the Cooper's gland. This is the cross section of the penis. You can see number 11, both of them are corpus cavernosus. Together we call them corpora cavernosa. Number 12 is corpus spongiosus. And number 13 is the urethra. Number 1 is the seminal vesicle. Number 2 is the prostate gland. And number 3 is the bulbourethral gland. Number 7 is the vas deferens. Number 4 is the epididymis. 5 is the testis. And 6 is the penis. This is the spermatogenesis, the events of spermatogenesis. You can see the spermatogonium, which do mitotic division and make spermatogonium type A and B. Then it differentiates to primary spermatocyte, meiosis 1 complete, and we have 2 secondary spermatocyte. And then meiosis 2 is completed, and we have 4 spermatid. The spermatids undergo spermiogenesis and make sperms. In this picture, number 14 are out of the seminiferous tubule. They are Sertoli cell for making testosterone. Then you can see the basement membrane of the seminiferous tubule. After that, you have a spermatogonium. Then you have primary spermatocyte. Then you have secondary spermatocyte. After that, spermatid, and then sperms. And these cells, which are located between the spermatogenic cells to protect, support, and nourish the spermatogenic cells, are called Sertoli cells. And this is the nucleus of Sertoli cell. And in this picture, you can see a piece of seminiferous tubule, and you have sperms inside the tubules here. And this is the basement membrane, number 3. Then you have a spermatogonium, primary spermatocyte, secondary spermatid, and sperms, one step after each other. And here you have interstitial tissue with Leydig cells. And the last slide is the slide of the sperm. In this picture, you can see 4 is the head of the sperm, 5 is the neck or mid piece, and 6 is the tail. And number 4 is composed of nucleus, number 2, and number 1 is the acrosomal cap or acrosomal vesicle. And number 3 are the mitochondria. Any questions? And the next one is the female reproductive system. In this picture, you can see the different parts of a female reproductive system. Number 7 are ovaries. Number 4 is the whole oviduct. 1 is the infundibulum. 2 is the ampulla, and 3 is the isthmus. Number 5 are the fimbria at the start of infundibulum. Number 6 is the suspensory ligament. And number 8 is the ovarian ligament. And then number 9 is the broad ligament. The sagittal section of the female. In this sagittal section, you can see the uterus. Number 1 is the cavity of uterus, and number 2 is the myometrium, the wall of the uterus. Here we have the cervix part. Then you can see vagina here. And this is the bladder, the detrusor muscle of the bladder. And number 5 is the round ligament of the uterus. And number 4 is the ovary. Here you have different layers of the wall. Look at here, this is the lumen of the uterus. Here number 10 is the fundus, and this region is called the body, and this part is called cervix. In the wall of the uterus, you can see endometrium, myometrium, and perimetrium. Number 5 here is the round ligament, and number 11 is the broad ligament, and number 12 is the uterus itself. Here you can see the cervix, cervical canal. You have the internal os and external os. And this is the vagina, and in the vagina we have many rugae. Number 1 is the anus. Number 2 is the external vaginal orifice. Number 3 is the pubic symphysis. Number 4 is the mons pubis. Number 5 is the clitoris. 6 is external urethral opening. 7 is labia minora, and 8 is labia majora. We talked about this picture. In this picture, you can see oogenesis. You see that some parts of oogenesis happen before birth. It's perinatal. You can see oogonium. It do mitotic division and then make primary oocyte. The first meiosis take place and it stops in prophase 1. After puberty, this prophase complete and you can see secondary oocyte and first polar body. Then the next meiosis starts and again it stops in metaphase 1. If fertilization with the sperm take place, the secondary oocyte completes its meiosis, and then we have fertilization and the zygote is made here. When the fertilization take place, the second meiosis complete and we have the oocyte which can combine with the sperm here. Here you can see the ovary, you can see the cortex with ovarian follicle and medulla here. Number 1 are the primordial follicle, then we have primary follicle unilaminar and multilaminar, antral or secondary follicle, and then we have mature follicle. Here is the oocyte and this is the theca layer around the follicle. And then ovulation take place and oocyte and a group of granulosa cells around, which we call them corona radiata, are released from the ovary. Then you can see the corpus luteum, and if pregnancy doesn't happen, it regress and make corpus albicans. In this picture, you can see number 9 are primary follicles. Number 10 again is primary. 11 is primary, but you see that they become bigger and bigger. And number 12 is the secondary follicle. Here you can see a group of primordial follicle beneath the capsule. And here you have number 15 as the oocyte, 16 are the granulosa cells, and 14 are the theca layer. And this region is called cortex of the ovary. And the last slide shows you the secondary follicle. You have antrum here. This is the oocyte, and these are the granulosa cells around the oocyte. Any questions? And the last part is, let me review the practical for you. Okay, the first question, identify the follicle indicated by yellow arrow. Yellow arrow shows the primordial follicle, and the follicle with the red arrow is the primary follicle, which is multilaminar. Question number 2, identify the follicle and name its primary secretory product. This follicle is a Graafian follicle, and Graafian follicle secrete estrogen. Number 3, identify the cell indicated by red arrow. These cells are spermatids because they are round and near the lumen. And what is secreted by the cells indicated by yellow arrow? These cells are Leydig cells, and they make testosterone. I forget to talk about it. The spermatid is haploid. It means that it contains only 23 chromosomes. Question number 4, it asks about the yellow arrow. The yellow arrow shows the broad ligament, and the red arrow shows the vestibular gland in the female, which can secrete mucus for lubrication of external genitalia. Question 5 asks about yellow and red arrow. The red arrow shows pelvic diaphragm or urogenital diaphragm, the body wall, and the yellow arrow shows vagina. Question 6, the yellow arrow shows epididymis, and a red arrow shows the seminal vesicle, and the function of seminal vesicle is making about 60% of the semen. The semen is a nutrient-rich fluid which can nourish the sperms. Question 7. In question 7, it asks about the yellow arrow. This is the glands of the penis. And the red arrow is the ureter, which bring the urine from the kidney to the bladder. Question 8 asks about the red arrow, which is the ovarian ligament, and the yellow arrow are lateral fornix. Number 9, the yellow arrow are the fimbria of the fallopian tube, And the red arrow is the myometrium of the uterus. Question 10, ask about the yellow arrow. This is the distal convoluted tubule. Look at the pale color here, while the proximal convoluted tubules are darker and deeper. And the function of distal convoluted tubule is reabsorption and secretion. Question 11, ask about the organ. When you see the star-shaped lumen, this is the ureter. Question 12, yellow arrow shows the arcuate artery, and blue arrow is the minor calyx. Number 13, the blue arrow is the loop of Penile, and the yellow arrow is proximal convoluted tube. Number 14, the blue arrow are the podocyte, and their function is filtration of the blood. And yellow arrow is the parietal layer of Bowman's capsule or glomerular capsule. And the last question, the yellow arrow shows you the vas deferens, and the red arrow is the prostate gland. You can do this practical many times, and it's not graded. So you don't have any grade for this part.